Right, thank you for clicking on this video, and as the title suggests, this will be talking about vaccines, what they are, how they work, as well as some ethical dilemmas and some interesting hot topics for medicine. So, vaccines. You've probably heard of them. COVID vaccine was pushed massively. Um, People would argue that it worked overwhelmingly, but that's a debate for another day. Let's get into how they work first. So, vaccines work by initiating a primary immune response, which is basically what happens when you first get infected with a disease. So, if you've ever wondered why you get a disease once and you rarely get it again, or when you do get it again, you get it to a lesser extent, this is why. So, what vaccines do is they mimic the primary immune response by activating the primary immune response and therefore letting the secondary immune response happen when you actually do get infected. So let's jump in. Right, so you get a vaccine it contains genetic information or antigens for the specific pathogen. Antigens are on everything. They're on like cancer cells, they're on foreign cells, they're on cells. It's basically something that your cells use in your body, which I'll get onto in a second, to recognize if a cell is foreign or if it is your own. And pathogens are foreign cells. So the antigen, that's an antigen right there. The antigen is injected into your body via the vaccine, and the phagocyte, this is the phagocyte right here, the phagocyte recognizes the foreign antigen. So what happens next is the phagocyte engulfs the antigen in a phagosome, and then that's all digested there, and the phagocyte presents the antigen. It becomes a antigen presenting cell. So what happens next is the specific helper T cells, which are the cells that are targeted in HIV and AIDS, which is why people with HIV and AIDS find it a lot more difficult to fight off basic diseases. So the helper T cells bind to this antigen and they simulate a humoral B cell response. So, what is a humoral B cell response? Well, a humoral B cell response starts when this cell is cloned into plasma cells, and then these plasma cells secrete these things called antibodies. Antibodies are a type of protein, and they have these variable regions. I'll really do a little diagram to show you a bit of a bigger antibody, because that one's a bit small for you. Right, okay, so this is an antibody. So you've got this structure here. You've got these things. These are the antigen binding sites. I'll call that ABS, antigen binding site. And then you've got these things here. These are called the variable regions. I'll call that VR. And then here the constant regions. So these things change, these things stay the same. And this is where we bind to the antigens. So with that in mind, let's get on to what these antibodies do. So they are secreted by these plasma cells. This is more towards, I'll get onto this in a second, right? Okay, so they can attach to the antigens because they have a specific 3D tertiary structure that enables, because they're proteins, that enables them to be complementary to only one specific type of antigen, and therefore bind to the antigen. And because they've got more than one, they can bind to more than one pathogen cell at once. And this is called a process called agglutination, where a big clump of pathogens are put together and it makes them easier to be destroyed by phagocytosis and other processes. So basically what it does is it clumps all of these pathogen cells, viruses, bacteria, whatever it may be, together, makes it easier to destroy, and yeah, kills it. Now, what also happens with the humoral B cell response is you get these things called memory cells, and memory cells are the main point of vaccines because they allow for a secondary immune response to occur. So I've written down here secondary immune response. So a secondary immune response, so you've had your vaccine, now you've had the virus, so you get infected with the virus again. So instead of going through this whole process here, called, I think it's clonal selection, where it's like all picked out and then it takes a very, very long time and it doesn't produce that many antibodies, what happens is these foreign antigens are immediately recognized and it just immediately skips to the part where the antibodies are produced. So these memory cells instantly start secreting these antibodies and they agglutinate the pathogens and destroy them a lot faster than if it was a primary response, because I'll put up the curve here, but as we'll see in a second, the primary response, not that many antibodies are produced and the concentration is very low, but in the secondary response, it takes a lot shorter amount of time and a lot more antibodies are produced and the concentration is very high. And yeah, it doesn't even go down to 0, there's still some left. So yeah, that's why many people think that vaccines are good. So why do people think that vaccines are bad? Well, there is a lot of disinformation and misinformation out there on the internet, but there are some slight causes for concern. Now, this is not to say that people should not get vaccinated, as I think that there are many vaccines that are extremely useful, especially in our society. I'll get onto herd immunity in a second, but there are some vaccines for diseases that could kill you like straight off, and we have eradicated many diseases like I think polio, I think smallpox are definitely eradicated. We have eradicated diseases with the help of vaccines. So herd immunity is extremely important if you actually want a vaccine to work. Basically, what herd immunity is where about 95% of people have either taken a vaccine or have got infected. And this means that the 5% that are too weak to take the vaccine or are too weak to get infected, when the pathogen and the disease or virus starts going through the population, it cannot get to those who are too weak and will die if they take the vaccine or are infected, because the 95% of people are blocking it. They are the herd and they are making everybody immune, but you need a very, very high proportion of people actually vaccinated for that to occur, and that is why misinformation and disinformation that is propagated online can have an adverse effect towards the reliability of a vaccine rollout program. Now, let's get to where it gets a bit hazy and a bit confusing. Not confusing, but it gets a bit ethical dilemma-y. So what are the ethical issues surrounding vaccines? Well, firstly, there is the fact that vaccines has to be tested not only on animals, which people object to, but also on humans. So in vaccine trials, the vaccine is not perfect. Most vaccines need to take years and years of development. The COVID vaccine did not, because it was fast-tracked, but many vaccines need to take years and years of development, and this year's of development, errors are made, and these errors are given to people, and it causes people to have adverse side effects. And even when the vaccine is completed, like the COVID vaccine, there was the blood clot thing, and I'll show you the graph in a second, but the graph of people claiming vaccine-related benefits because they were injured by a vaccine skyrocketed. So, is it ethical to force a population to be vaccinated? I think no. I think you can ask them very, very kindly and very, very forcefully to get vaccinated, but I do not think it is fair to forcefully vaccinate people against their will when you know that there is a percent chance that they are dying, because then you are sentencing millions of people to death, even if it's a 0.001% chance that you'll have any adverse side effects. It's unethical, it's wrong, and you shouldn't do it. But that doesn't mean that people shouldn't get vaccinated. People definitely should. But they just shouldn't be forced to. So yeah, there's the animal testing, there's the human testing, and there's the adverse human side effects. So, thank you very much for watching this video. I understand that I have spoken very, very fast. I should probably slow down my voice a little bit if I want to make the video last a bit longer, but hopefully the information was just put straight into your brain as quickly as possible. You can always watch it in 0.5 times speed, increase the retention for the algorithm, if you know what I mean. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed. I've enjoyed, I mean, not really researching it, I kind of already learnt it, but I've enjoyed learning this, writing it down, sharing it with you guys. And if you guys have enjoyed listening to me talking about this and have learnt something yourself, then make sure to like, subscribe, comment on, let's have a little think, comment on your favourite vaccine rollout program. Mine is probably smallpox, because I don't think that there are that many adverse side effects to the smallpox vaccine, and smallpox is eradicated, so that's great. So yeah, comment your favourite vaccine rollout program, and let me know if you want me to do a video on specific history of vaccines. I did this at history, I studied history, and I found this very interesting. It actually gave me my love for medicine, doing this at history as well as other stuff to do with medicine. So yeah, let me know if you want me to do a video about this, a video about anything that's adjacent to this, or anything in particular whatsoever. Check out my channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.